Hello, in this video I'd like to talk to you a bit about the European debt crisis because I think that it's a nice way to talk to you about government bond yields. Now, how am I going to tell this story? Well, I'm going to use the graph that you see here to tell the story. Now, what do we have in this graph? Well, we're tracking 10-year government bond yields for the governments that you see indicated right over here in the legend. These are Eurozone governments that we're looking at, and we're tracking their government bond yields over time, and we start with 2008. So story starts in 2008 and we track these government bond yields all the way up to the beginning of 2015. Okay, how are we going to start this story? Okay, well, first I'm going to just get a pen. Just want to give me a pen. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to get a pen. Okay, let's start out by me pretending that I'm the Greek government. Okay, so let's say that I'm the Greek government. Let me just write that down. So I am the Greek government. And what am I doing? Well, at the beginning of 2008, I'm looking at my annual budget. And what do I see? Well, I see that I have collected, so I'm the Greek government, I've collected a certain amount in taxes. Okay, so here, T for taxes. I've collected a certain amount of euros in taxes on the one hand, and on the other hand, I see that I have planned out a certain amount in expenditure. Okay, so here, let's take a look at the amount that I've planned out in expenditure. This amount I'm going to denote G. You see here the number of euros that I have planned out in expenditure. And what do I notice? Well, I notice that I have planned out a whole bunch more in expenditure. Okay, look at all of these euros that I have planned to spend. All of these euros that I've planned to spend. I planned out a whole bunch more in expenditure than I've collected in taxes. Okay, now, in order for me to be able to carry out this expenditure, I'm going to have to find money somewhere because I certainly haven't collected enough in taxes. Okay, so where am I going to get the money from? Let me first change color once again. Okay, well, I'm going to have to turn to the capital markets and look to see if I can borrow. Okay, so let me write this down. These are my capital markets down here. Okay, so I'm going to turn to the capital markets to see if I can borrow the missing euros. Okay, so I'm going to see, okay, if I can borrow the euros that I need in order to be able to spend the money that I have initially planned on spending. Okay, what's another way of saying this? Okay, well, what we're talking about is that the Greek government here is issuing bonds. Issuing bonds. What is a bond? Well, a bond is just a legal contract in which the terms and the conditions of this loan are clearly spelled out. Okay, so let's write all of that down. So what is spelled out in my bond? Okay, well, basically it says, listen, if you give me 100 euros today, okay, so if you give me 100 euros today, now remember that today is 2008, okay, if you give me 100 euros today, listen, I promise to give you the 100 euros back. I promise to pay you those 100 euros back in 10 years' time. Remember that we're looking at a 10-year government bond yield. This is just some sort of classic benchmark. So I promise to pay back the 100 euros in 2018. And in the meantime, I promise to pay interest on that loan. Now, what interest am I promising to pay? Well, let's take a look at what rate is being offered, or at what rate the Greek government can access the capital markets in 2008, and you see that it looks like 4.5%. Okay, so let me write this down here into the contract. Okay, Greek government is saying, listen, I promise to pay you 4.5% on the 100 euros over the 10-year period. Okay, so all of this information is written up in this legal contract, this bond, and the Greek government is issuing these bonds, selling these pieces of paper. Okay, now let's stop pretending that I'm the Greek government. Now let's say that I'm a financial investor. I'm a financial investor. Let's say that I am actually the manager of a pension fund. I'm managing a pension fund. Many households have entrusted me with their savings, and my job is to make those savings grow in a safe way so that these households can have the money that they need when they retire. Okay, so that's my job. And how am I going to go out doing that? Well, I have to figure out how to invest the capital that they have entrusted me with. And that means buying certain financial products. And one of the products that I'm considering is this Greek bond that's yielding 4.5%. So I'm looking at the 4.5% on this Greek bond. And what am I thinking? Okay, well, this 4.5% is supposed to represent compensation for three different factors. And the first factor is opportunity cost. Let me first write it out and then I will explain. So opportunity cost. Okay, so what's the idea here? Well, if I lend 100 euros to the Greek government for 10 years, it means that for those 10 years, I can't use the 100 euros. It means that I miss out on the possibility of using those 100 euros in all sorts of alternative ways. And me as a financial investor, I require compensation for the loss of those opportunities. Okay, so the 4.5% represents in part compensation for this opportunity cost. And then there's a second bit. Okay, so the 4.5% is also supposed to compensate me for expected inflation. Once again, I'm going to write it out first. Expected inflation. Okay, now what's the story here? Well, today, when I give those 100 euros to the Greek government, well, I could have taken those 100 euros and gone to the supermarket to buy chocolate bars, and I could have bought 100 chocolate bars with the 100 euros. When I get my 100 euros back from the government in 10 years' time, in 2018, and I take the 100 euros to the supermarket to buy chocolate bars, I will no longer be able to buy 100 chocolate bars because in the meantime, the price of the chocolate bar will have increased because of inflation. Okay, what this means is actually that the Greek government is paying me back using money that's worth less in real terms. The inflation has eaten away at the purchasing power of the money. Me as a financial investor, well, I require compensation, okay, for that fact. Okay, so the 4.5% so far represents compensation for opportunity cost, expected inflation, and then we get to the third factor, and the third factor is counterparty risk. Let me write that out. Counterparty risk. There we go. Okay, so what's the idea here? When anybody lends out money to anybody else, they always run the risk of never seeing the money again. Okay, and me as a financial investor, I require compensation for that risk. So here we're referring to the risk that the counterparty defaults on the payment. Okay, so it seems that at the beginning of 2008, the markets are evaluating those three factors as adding up to 4.5%. Okay, that's where I'm going to end this video. Okay, so basically what we've done in this video is we've sort of set the scene. We've, set up the beginning to the story. In the next video, I'll be able to walk you through what happens next, what happens over time in this graph. Okay, see you later.